It smelled like victory and fermented squid milk, mostly the latter. The Grand Combat Spire Drav-9 pulsed with living bone and electromagnetic fervor, its walls twitching subtly with the rhythm of the crowd's collective bloodlust. 50,000 species, give or take those still squirming in their egg sacs, had gathered beneath the biodome's translucent skull to witness what was being advertised as the final proof of human insignificance. The marketing was subtle like a headbutt. From the arena's edge, waves of scent-based applause rolled out, some spiced with phenomenal zest, others more like swamp rot on fire. Winged diplomats flapped furiously in viewing towers, while tentacled nobles slithered into premium mucus pods, all of them vibrating with the exquisite pleasure of upcoming violence. At the center of it all stood the champion, Zerko the Flayborn, 17 feet tall, plated in serrated bone, and currently sipping liquefied predator from a trophy made of someone else's spine. Zerko was the Kotharn Empire's pride. He'd once snapped a Cruxian war priest in half during a handshake, and had the footage set to music. He was the undefeated terror of 10 systems. And across the pit, behind an unceremoniously placed steel door marked probationary combatant Earth, stood absolutely no one. The crowd began to murmur, a sound like boiling syrup and static feedback. Somewhere, a gelatinous fan tried to shift bets before the rules locked. A 6-headed announcer beast, Kormal, voice of the Spire, ambassador of self-importance, twisted its necks to address the throng. Honored species of intellect, fury, and bioluminescence. Prepare for disappointment or spectacle or both, as the Terran combatant has. Ah, wait. One head sniffed. It appears, yes, something's oozing through the prep chamber now. The door opened with a lackluster wheeze. Out stepped a human. Average height. No dramatic armor. No ceremonial scars. No luminescent glands. Just a woman in a gray, textureless suit that looked like it had lost a bet with a hardware store. She was chewing. The screen above flashed her designation. Combatant. Earthling 1.9.7 LE-Cas. Species. Homo sapiens under review. Odds of survival. 0.0002%. Cultural trait. Sarcasm. The crowd erupted, not in cheer, but with the kind of delighted revulsion reserved for watching insects walk into jet engines. Zerko bellowed a chortle that cracked the humidity sensors. She is unarmed. He announced to no one in particular. They send me bones in a sock? Ellie tilted her head, casually regarding the mountain of rage. That's a lot of screaming for someone who hasn't started bleeding yet, she muttered. Zerko squinted. What? I said, nice chitin. Is it washable? Gasps rippled through the diplomatic wings. A Bethelax ambassador dropped his ceremonial drink sack in horror. Back in the betting pits, digits flew. One brave investor from Sector 19 placed a modest wager on the Earthling lasting past the first 30 seconds. He was laughed at, which, in Bethelax culture, meant they filled his nostrils with fermented egg foam. Kormal cleared its many throats. Let us remember the sacred, the politically negotiated, reason we are gathered. Today's match is a final exhibition in the Galactic Combat Display Series. It shall determine whether the species known as humans shall remain under probationary observation or be granted conditional combat recognition under Article 7 Delta of the Bureaucratic Species Integration Treaty. One of the heads yawned. Another winked at the camera. Behind them, a bureaucratic AI in a floating cube, Spectre Compliance Unit _947, flashed a legal disclaimer across everyone's Cortex feeds. Earth participation does not imply endorsement. All injuries sustained are property of the Galactic Broadcasting Network. Ellie, meanwhile, rolled her neck once. No flare, no war cry, just quiet calibration. Do you wish to perform the ritual of intent? Asked the BioArena's protocol drone, a thin orb covered in antennae and unresolved existential dread. No, thanks, Ellie replied. Did that when I signed the waiver. Zerko, in contrast, raised all four of his weapon-clawed arms and roared a liturgy that invoked ancestral vengeance, meet justice, and something about bathing in the marrow of cowards. He finished with a pelvic thrust that rippled to the audience's hormonal response grid. Ellie blinked. Well, that was intimate. The arena began shifting. Terrains melted into place. Jagged platforms, swirling fog pockets, biomechanical vines that pulse with hazard warnings. It was called the Adaptive Dome, and it adjusted based on combatant data, which was unfortunate because Earth hadn't submitted any. The configuration heavily favored large, aggressive species with multi-limb advantage. You are permitted one weapon, the protocol drone said to Ellie. She held up a sleek, matte black rifle the size of an umbrella. No visible power source. No blade edges. No theatrics. Quormal's third had squinted. Is that a hairdryer? Zerko chuckled menacingly. I will crush her before her scent reaches my third lung. A low chime sounded. The battle was imminent. Spectator Compliance Unit _947's voice rang out. Final reminder. All non-corporeal entities must disengage from combatants. Betting closes in 5, 4, 3. Ellie looked at her opponent, then at the crowd, then at the floor. She exhaled. 2. Her hand reached up to the side of her neck, adjusted a dial. 1. And just before the buzzer, she disappeared. Not dramatically, not with a poof. Just wasn't there anymore. The camera feeds glitched. The arena gasped. Zerko roared, spinning in search of a target. Where's the meat? The betting boards froze. A blinking subtitle read, searching for Earthling. Quormal's voices stuttered. Ladies in gelatinous forms, welcome to the match. The arena held its breath. Somewhere unseen, a rifle clicked. The prep chamber smelled like antiseptic jelly and bureaucratic negligence. Ellie sat alone on a slab of something semi-organic, chewing the last of her gum with the precise rhythm of a clock winding down. Across from her, an alien medic hovered in uncertainty, a creature made mostly of iridescent cartilage and underpaid stress. It held a scanner in one trembling tendril. Your physiology is deeply inefficient, it murmured, scanning again. Is your cardiovascular rhythm supposed to be that erratic? Ellie blew a bubble. It popped with soft defiance. It's called caffeine withdrawal. You want me calm, or you want me useful? The medic quivered and backed away, muttering about liability disclaimers. A panel buzzed overhead. A Cawthorn strategist's face, a slab of armor with opinions, appeared in the feed, sneering. You should have forfeited. Earthling. No honor lies in being consumed on the floor. Ellie tilted her head. I'm not here for honor. I'm here because the ticket was free, and I was bored. He snarled something in a dialect that smelled like vinegar and burning ozone before cutting the transmission. She resumed chewing. The suit they'd given her was military-issue Earth Recon camo. Unremarkable, color-shifting only when necessary, designed to look like failure until it didn't. The material absorbed light, heat, and ridicule equally. Most species found it visually offensive. Too quiet, too dull, too uncelebratory. Galactic warriors favored brightness, spectacle, flair. Ellie favored not dying. The chamber lights flickered once. On cue, her neural HUD blinked to life behind her eyes. A dozen readings updated. Ambient pressure, opponent vitals, terrain loadout. Zerko's rage level was already at 91%, which, for a species, meant lucid euphoria. He'd likely be laughing when he tried to decapitate her. She preferred them that way. Footsteps. Well, slithering stomps. A delegation of diplomatic observers entered, flanked by a floating camera orb and a translator cube that hummed apologetically. The Terran representative, a lanky man with a permanent coffee stain on his jacket, gave Ellie a sheepish nod. Technically, we were supposed to send someone symbolic, a diplomat, perhaps. She didn't move, but command said you had field clearance and, an open schedule. Still nothing. The camera hovered closer. Earth viewers would appreciate a short statement, something to inspire confidence and viewership. Ellie finally looked up. Her voice was even, like a surgeon reaching for the right tool. Tell them it's a shame Zerko brought 4 arms to a fight he won't see coming. The translator cube word. Paused. The literal translation of that is, he will not have eyes by the end of this interaction. Shall we soften it? Don't bother. With that, she stood. The gum was gone. The look in her eyes was the color of winter storms on Europa. Quiet, precise, terminal. The delegation shuffled backward. She didn't need a pre-fight ritual. She'd done enough of those in fields of red dust and low moons, places where rituals were for the ones who lived. Her traditions were built from silence, split-second timing, and the understanding that every opponent had a blind spot. You just had to wait until they handed it to you. Zerko, for all his myth and muscle, was still bound by visibility. Ellie wasn't. As she checked her weapon one last time, rifle sleek, short-barrel, homemade modifications fused into its skeleton, she felt the world begin to slow. Not literally, just that strange pre-combat pause, when gravity seemed to lean in and ask, "Are you sure?" She always was. Back in the arena, the crowd had begun to chant again. It wasn't language, exactly, more of a biological celebration of incoming gore. Membranes quivered, fangs vibrated. A few species exploded from excitement. Spectacle was not optional on Drav 9. It was nourishment. Zerko was already in the center, performing his second war cry, a complicated series of snarls, flexes, and oaths to ancestral predator gods. He looked like a cathedral designed by a sadist. Ellie was still backstage, adjusting the final setting on her camo dial. The suit shimmered once, blending just slightly with the chamber walls. Not perfect invisibility, not magic, just unnoticed. From a control tower, a galactic commentator reviewed her odds. Earth's combatant does not appear to possess claws, venom, telepathic rage, aura, or post-mortem resurrection. Her plan seems to involve not being there when death arrives. The co-commentator, a binary starfish named Gleeble, responded with a skeptical gurgle. Still backstage, Ellie touched her earpiece. Run predictive tracking on his footwork. Flag any repeat steps. A soft chime answered. The HUD overlaid a model of Zerko's last 5 fights. He favored a left-leaning rear stance just before committing to a spinal twist, a pattern that could be exploited, assuming one was alive long enough to see it. The orb camera turned to her side, floating nervously. She raised an eyebrow. "You want to start rolling," she said. "Already recording." "Good." She pulled her hood into place. "This one's going to be hard to explain." The entrance gates hissed. The arena floor reassembled into a jagged, terrain-shifting landscape, a death trap for predictable and a playground for ghosts. Ellie stepped through the mist. No fanfare, no drumbeat, just her shadow dissolving into the fog. Somewhere in the crowd, a diplomat muttered, "They didn't even give her a theme song." Ellie's voice crackled through the comms, low and dry. "Didn't need one." Then silence, because where Ellie moved next, sound didn't follow. The arena pulsed like a living thing trying to decide whether to digest or entertain. Its terrain had completed morphing, jagged obsidian ridges, bioluminescent fog clouds drifting just above the ground, and rotating platforms that made a sound not unlike laughing bone. From above, it looked like a shattered cathedral filled with murderous wind. Zerko stood dead center, arms raised in glorious anticipation, framed by acidic green spotlights and a waterfall of crowd adoration. He had been promised violence. He had been promised spectacle. He had been promised, specifically, the pulping of a soft-skinned mammal into an anecdote. And yet, there was no human to be seen. "She cowers." Zerko growled to the judge's booth. "This match must be voided under cowardice protocol." The announcers, Kormal's 6 heads now arguing with themselves, scrambled to fill dead air. "We believe the Earthling is here. Somewhere, perhaps hiding in spirit?" A second voice, drier, unamused, interrupted. It belonged to Spectator Compliance Unit _947, the bureaucratic AI. "Human combatants biosignature confirmed. She is within designated perimeter. Cloaking engaged. Match remains valid." A flicker in the mist. The camera feed glitched. Zerko twisted. "Show yourself, coward." Nothing answered. To most galactic species, the concept of camouflage had long been abandoned, rejected as a tactic of prey. Apex hunters glowed. They roared. They announced their dominance by being impossible to ignore. Disappearance was shame. Silence was weakness. To vanish was to admit you did not belong. Ellie disagreed. She was moving, not invisibly, but precisely. Each step placed where sound would not echo. Each breath calibrated to the arena's temperature. Her suit adapted, subtly shifting texture to mirror the bioluminescent stones, then dimming again as she passed a sulfur jet that coughed yellow mist. Even her rifle had been soundproofed, its joints buffered in gel. She was the idea of absence given form. The only indicator of her presence was a soft data stream ticking across her HUD. Zerko's heart rate climbing, his muscles twitching in anticipation, his weight shifting with impatience. He was strong, fast, but strength swings wide when it fears silence. She stopped on a perch above his right flank. He hadn't looked up once. In the stands, confusion rippled. Aliens leaned forward, eyes bulging, feelers fluttering. Where is she? Did the humans trick the system? Is she even real? One brave soul near the betting pit whispered, I think she's watching him. And she was. Every movement Zerko made followed predictable patterns. He lunged left when disoriented. He roared when he couldn't smell a target. He stomped to flush prey from cover. But his noise was working against him. The terrain responded dynamically to kinetic pressure, and his every step distorted the arena's layout slightly, reshaping fog patterns and generating thermal pockets. To Zerko, it was chaos. To Ellie, it was a map. From her perch, she flicked her targeting lens down once. Not to shoot yet, but a confirmed range. A soft chirp answered. 87 meters. Close enough. Zerko roared again. The sound hit the arena walls and ricocheted. He spun, claws raised. I hear you, Ghost. I smell your cowardice. He didn't, but he wanted to. That was enough. Ellie dropped silently to a lower ledge, moving like fog, obeying gravity. Her suit rippled with the shadow of a thermal bloom, then cooled instantly as her boots contacted stone. She placed a small, flat sensor on the ground and vanished into the mist again. Above, the six-headed announcer finally snapped. We're witnessing, something tactical, unorthodox, innovative, possibly illegal. The judges are consulting 17 rulebooks and a cursed scroll. Zerko's rage was curdling into frustration. He clawed open a fog pocket, nothing. Smashed a ridge, still nothing. The crowd, once ecstatic, now murmured like a disappointed tide. Then came the shot. Not loud, not flashy. A low-frequency thuck, barely audible beneath the arena hum. Zerko's upper right arm spasmed violently and dropped the blade. Nerve strike. Perfect angle. He reeled back, snarling, eyes darting. Where? Another shot, this time a leg tendon. Non-lethal. Measured. Deliberate. Zerko fell to a knee. The crowd screamed, but this time in disbelief. Do you see her? A diplomat yelled. I don't even see her shadow, replied another. Back in her perch, Ellie watched through her scope. Zerko was scanning wildly now, blood dripping from non-critical wounds. His stance had shifted. He was leaning too heavily on his left, opening the exact line she predicted. She waited. He bellowed to the sky, raising his arms. Fight me, coward. The arena echoed with silence. Then Ellie spoke, calm, quiet, and broadcast into his earpiece by her drone relay. You first. The final shot wasn't a kill. She fired into a sensory node behind his second left eye. A cluster the Cawthorn had genetically engineered to detect motion. The shot fried the organ with surgical precision. Zerko screamed, blind on one side, and collapsed onto the vines writhing at his feet. Ellie stepped from the fog at last. Every eye in the Colosseum turned. Every breath held. She was standing 10 meters from him, rifle relaxed at her side, staring not at the crowd, but at him, at the moment between rage and surrender. You were never hunting, she said softly. You were just making noise. Zerko, stunned, tried to rise, then realized he could not feel his arms. Ellie turned and walked away. Above her, the scoreboard blinked. Viable threat status, confirmed. Human victory, technical dominance. And somewhere in the crowd, a diplomat whispered the words that would begin 100 galactic debates. They didn't send a warrior. Pause. They sent a warning. Zerko lay on the arena floor. twitching in cycles of stunned confusion and offended pride. His mouth foamed in 4 colors, none of them natural, while his sensory glands sparked weakly, overwhelmed and blind. The arena had gone quiet, not out of reverence, but confusion, the kind of stunned silence only bureaucracies and battle-hardened warlords could share. The Grand Combat Spire, once alive with bets and bile, now buzzed only with a low whine of political recalculation. High above, a floating diplomat from the Crystal Dominion clicked its pincers nervously. Was that legal? Spectator Compliance Unit _947 responded before anyone else could fake authority. Human combatant followed Rule Protocol 9B. Engage opponent within terrain constraints, using non-prohibited weapons and tactics. No violations detected. But she never declared lethal intent, cried a Cawthorn judge, frothing slightly. She never needed to, the AI deadpanned. Across the arena, Ellie stood with one boot resting lightly on the rim of a shattered platform, rifle cradled casually in the crook of her arm. She was unbloodied, unbothered, and already halfway through a ration bar she'd pulled from her side pouch. Lemon chili, not the best flavor, but functional. The orb camera floated hesitantly toward her. Human combatant, it chirped. Please remain for post-victory statement, press interface, and standardized gloating ritual. Ellie glanced up. No. Refusal logged, the orb muttered. Unprecedented. The announcer scrambled to salvage narrative authority. Well, that was certainly an innovative display of cultural minimalism. Let's review the key tactics. The screen above replayed the 3 tranquilizer shots in slow motion, layering dramatic orchestral shrieks over what had, in reality, been silent flickers of precision. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't know how to. Zerko's handlers scrambled onto the field, their medical drones cautiously lifting the champion's twitching frame onto a slab. His eyes never found Ellie. He wasn't looking for her anymore. He was trying to remember when he lost sight of himself. In the diplomatic wing, chaos bloomed like a fungal spore bomb. Earth's ambassador adjusted his tie, a hopeful, desperate man who'd expected a formal loss and a return to obscurity. Instead, he now faced 17 incoming comm feeds, 6 of them from former enemies requesting expanded human combat doctrine consultation. For others included accusations of interspecies psychological warfare. He pressed a button on his comm. Command, we may have a situation. Back on the arena floor, Ellie moved toward the exit ramp. She didn't strut, didn't wave, didn't even nod at the crowd. She walked like she was late for a bus. A few species craned forward, as if her silence might finally say something. It didn't. Quormal's primary head tried to improvise. A truly sobering result. Let us not forget that spectacle is not only about victory, but the manner of... The 4th head interrupted. She made him look like a drunk with a spoon. Agreed, mumbled the 2nd. Who is she? One of the audience members whispered, gills flaring. Another replied, she never even raised her voice. As Ellie reached the final ramp, a Cawthorn diplomat barked through the speakers. Human, stand and account. You defeated our greatest warrior with deception and tricks. Is this how your species fights? She stopped, turned slightly, and for the first time addressed the arena. Tricks are what you call things you didn't see coming, she said. But we've always been like this. You just didn't bother looking. The arena held its breath. Ellie's voice didn't rise. If anything, it grew smaller. You thought we'd come out shouting, charging, wearing flags. That's not how we survive. We wait, we observe, and when it matters, we move. A ripple passed through the crowd. Not awe, not fear exactly, but something stranger. Recognition. In the control tower, an analyst coughed nervously and switched off the translator feed. We may need to adjust the threat index on Homo sapiens. To what? Unknown. The final exit gate opened. Ellie stepped into the light beyond the arena, her figure swallowed by the silhouette of quiet excellence. No anthem, no applause, just the soft click of boots on metal and the sense that something uninvited had taken root in every species' mind. Later, they would all review the footage, dissect the angles, debate the ethics. They would debate the definition of visibility, whether dominance could be silent, and why Earth's newest warrior didn't seem to care who was watching. But by then, she'd be gone. You can't kill what you can't see. And worse, you can't unsee what just happened.